Simone Parker stood frozen in the middle of the luxury boutique, her worn sneakers squeaking against the polished marble floor. Every eye in the store was on her. The sales associates whispered behind their manicured hands, their lips curling into cruel smiles. One of them, a woman with perfectly styled blonde hair and a name tag that read Gabrielle, stood just 3 feet away, speaking loud enough for everyone to hear. "I don't know how people like that even find the courage to walk through our doors," Gabrielle said to another employee, her voice dripping with disdain. "This isn't a thrift store." The other customer stopped browsing to stare. A woman in a cream pantsuit clutched her designer handbag closer, as if Simone might snatch it. An older man shook his head and muttered something to his wife. Heat rushed to Simone's face, but she forced herself to stand tall. Her daughter, Amara, tugged at her faded blue jacket, confusion and hurt swimming in her big brown eyes. "Mama, why is that lady being mean?" Amara whispered. Simone's heart shattered into 1,000 pieces. Her 7-year-old daughter, the light of her life, shouldn't have to witness this cruelty. But they had come here for a reason. Tomorrow was Amara's birthday, and despite working 3 jobs and barely making rent, Simone wanted to give her baby one special thing. Just one gift from a real store, not a second-hand shop. Was that too much to ask? Gabrielle walked closer, her heels clicking like a countdown. "Ma'am, if you're not planning to purchase anything, I'm going to have to ask you to leave. We have a dress code for customers and, well..." She looked Simone up and down with obvious disgust. "You're making our other clients uncomfortable." The humiliation burned like fire in Simone's chest. She wanted to run, to grab Amara's hand and flee from this nightmare. But something kept her feet planted. Maybe it was the memory of Amara's face that morning, talking about how all her classmates had fancy birthday dresses and she wished for just one pretty thing. Maybe it was 7 years of struggling alone, of being invisible, of being treated like she didn't matter. Maybe it was simply that she was tired of being pushed down. "I have money," Simone said quietly, her voice shaking but clear. "I came to buy something for my daughter." Gabrielle laughed, a sharp, ugly sound. "Oh really? Do you have any idea how much our items cost? The cheapest dress in this store is $400. Simone's stomach dropped. $400. She had saved $200 over 3 months, skipping meals and walking to work to save bus fare. It wasn't enough. It would never be enough. The tears she'd been fighting finally threatened to spill over. But before she could respond, before she could gather what little dignity she had left and walk out, something happened. The door to the back office opened and a man stepped out. He was tall, wearing an expensive charcoal suit that fit him perfectly. His dark hair was styled neatly, and his presence commanded attention in a way that was both natural and undeniable. He walked toward the main floor with confident strides, his eyes scanning the store, clearly checking on his business. Then he saw her. The man stopped mid-step, his entire body going rigid. His face drained of color. His mouth opened slightly as if he'd seen a ghost. For a long, suspended moment, he simply stared at Simone with an expression of pure shock. Then his eyes dropped to the little girl beside her. Amara, with her bright, curious eyes, her thick curly hair pulled into 2 puff balls, her small hand gripping her mother's jacket. The man's face changed, transforming from shock to something else entirely. Recognition. Disbelief. And then, unmistakably, pain. "Simone." His voice cracked on her name. The world tilted. Simone's breath caught in her throat. She knew that voice. She had heard it in her dreams for 7 years, sometimes sweet and loving, sometimes accusing and cold. She knew that face, though it was older now, more mature, marked by time and success. Julian Hayes. The father of her child. The man who had disappeared from her life without a word. The man she had loved with everything in her, who had left her alone and pregnant and terrified. And apparently the owner of this store. Have you ever been judged for something beyond your control? Have you watched someone you love suffer because of other people's cruelty? This is Simone's story, but it could be anyone's story. If this touches your heart, please subscribe and share your thoughts in the comments. Have you ever experienced discrimination like this? Let's talk about it. 20 minutes earlier, Simone had stood outside the boutique, gathering her courage. The store was called Hayes & Company, a name that meant nothing to her at the time. The windows displayed elegant dresses on mannequins that looked like they belonged in magazines. Everything sparkled under bright, clean lighting that made the whole place look like something from a fairy tale. "Is this where we're getting my birthday dress, Mama?" Amara had asked, pressing her nose against the glass. "Maybe, baby. Let's go see." The moment they walked through the door, Simone knew it was a mistake. The store was beautiful, All white marble and crystal chandeliers, with racks of clothes in every color arranged like art installations. Classical music played softly from hidden speakers. Everything smelled expensive like leather and perfume and new fabric. The women working there looked like models. They wore fitted black dresses and high heels, their hair and makeup perfect. When they saw Simone and Amara enter, their welcoming smiles faded instantly. Simone was wearing her cleanest jeans, the ones without holes, and a simple blue jacket over a white t-shirt. Amara wore pink leggings and a purple sweater that was slightly too small. Their clothes were clean but clearly worn, clearly cheap. In this place they stood out like weeds in a rose garden. "Good morning," Simone said politely to the nearest sales associate, a young black woman with sleek straightened hair. "I'm looking for a dress for my daughter. Something for a special occasion." The woman's smile was tight and fake. "Of course. The children's section is in the back. I should mention that our pieces start at $400. Will that be a problem?" The question was loaded with judgment. Simone felt her cheeks burn, but she kept her voice steady. "I'd like to see what you have, please." The woman led them to the children's section with obvious reluctance, as if touching them might leave a stain. Other employees watched their progress across the store. Simone heard whispers, saw pointing. She wanted to shield Amara from it all, but her daughter was already looking around with wide, innocent eyes. "Mama, look at all the pretty colors," Amara breathed. There were dresses in red, emerald green, royal blue, soft pink, and lavender. They hung on small hangers like precious treasures, each one more beautiful than the last. Amara reached out to touch a sky blue dress with delicate white flowers embroidered on the hem. "Don't touch," the sales associate said sharply. "These are very delicate fabrics." Amara jerked her hand back, her face crumpling. Simone put a protective arm around her daughter's shoulders. "She wasn't going to damage anything," Simone said, trying to keep her voice calm. "She just wanted to feel the fabric." "Our policy is no touching unless you're making a purchase," the woman said coldly. Then she walked away, leaving them standing alone in the section. Simone looked at the price tags. The blue dress Amara had admired was $650. Another dress, a simple red one, was $500. Everything was far beyond what she could afford. Her carefully saved $200 felt like pennies. "Can I try on the blue one, Mama?" Amara asked hopefully. "Just to see what it looks like?" Before Simone could answer, Gabrielle appeared. She was clearly the head sales associate, carrying herself with an authority that bordered on aggression. She looked at Simone and Amara with open hostility. "Is there something I can help you with?" Gabrielle asked, though her tone suggested she wanted to help them out the door. "My daughter would like to try on that blue dress," Simone said, pointing. Gabrielle's eyebrows rose. "That dress is $650. Plus tax." "I understand. She just wants to try it on." "Our fitting rooms are for serious buyers only," Gabrielle said. "I can't have people treating this store like a playground, trying on expensive items with no intention of purchasing." The words hit Simone like slaps. "How do you know I'm not a serious buyer?" Gabrielle's smile was poisonous. "Call it experience. I've worked in retail for 15 years. I can tell when someone is window shopping and when someone is wasting my time." Other customers were definitely watching now. A couple near the handbag section stared openly. Two teenage girls by the jewelry counter whispered and giggled. The store had become a stage, and Simone was the unwilling performer in a cruel show. "I came here to buy my daughter a birthday gift," Simone said, her voice shaking now. "I saved money specifically for this. I deserve to be treated with respect, just like anyone else." "Respect is earned," Gabrielle shot back. "And it's certainly not earned by people who come into high-end stores and clothing from discount stores, expecting to be treated like royalty. This is a luxury boutique, not a charity." The words hung in the air, ugly and brutal. Simone felt tears prick her eyes. Not for herself, but for Amara, who was hearing every word, whose small hand had tightened in hers. "Mama, we can go," Amara whispered. "I don't need a new dress." That broke Simone's heart completely. Her 7-year-old daughter, trying to protect her mother's feelings, willing to give up her birthday wish because of someone else's cruelty. "No," Simone said firmly. She looked directly at Gabrielle. "We're staying. I came to shop and I'm going to shop." Gabrielle's face hardened. "Fine. But I'll be watching you very carefully. We have cameras throughout the store, and if I see anything suspicious, I won't hesitate to call security." The implication was clear and disgusting. She was suggesting Simone might steal something. "That's enough." The voice came from behind them, deep and authoritative. Simone turned and saw another employee, an older woman with gray-streaked hair and kind eyes. Her name tag read Beth. "Gabrielle, Mr. Hayes wants to see you in his office," Beth said firmly. "Right now." Gabrielle's confidence faltered slightly, but she recovered quickly. "I'm assisting a customer." "I'll take over," Beth said. It wasn't a suggestion. Gabrielle shot Simone one more hateful look before stalking toward the back office, her heels clicking angrily against the marble floor. Beth turned to Simone and Amara with a warm smile. "I'm so sorry about that. You shouldn't have been treated that way. Now, let's find this beautiful girl a birthday dress, shall we?" Beth's kindness was like water in a desert. She knelt down to Amara's level, her smile genuine and sweet. "What's your name, sweetheart?" Beth asked. "Amara," the little girl said softly, still shaken from Gabrielle's cruelty. "What a beautiful name. And how old are you going to be?" "8. My birthday is tomorrow." 8 years old. "That's a very special age," Beth said. "I bet you want a very special dress, don't you?" Amara nodded, her eyes drifting back to the blue dress with white flowers. Beth followed her gaze and smiled. "You have excellent taste. That's one of my favorite pieces. Would you like to try it on?" "Really?" Amara's face lit up. "Of course, really. That's what fitting rooms are for." Beth carefully removed the dress from the rack and held it up. "This is going to look stunning on you. Come on, let's see." As Beth led Amara to the fitting room, Simone felt tears threaten again, but this time from gratitude. There were still good people in the world. People who saw beyond appearances, who treated everyone with dignity. While Amara changed, Beth stood with Simone, keeping her voice low and private. "Please don't judge our store by Gabrielle's behavior," Beth said. "She has some issues with people she perceives as beneath her. It's not right, and it's not how Mr. Hayes wants his store run." "Is Mr. Hayes the owner?" Simone asked, her throat tight. "Yes. He's a good man. Built this business from the ground up. He would be horrified if he knew how Gabrielle treated you." Simone nodded, unable to trust her voice. She was still shaking from the confrontation, still processing the humiliation. The other customers had gone back to their shopping, but she could feel their lingering stares, their judgment. Then Amara emerged from the fitting room and everything else faded away. The blue dress fit her perfectly. It fell just below her knees, the white flowers creating a delicate pattern that caught the light. Amara's face glowed with pure joy. She twirled, watching the skirt flare out, and laughed. "Mama, look. I'm like a princess." Simone's vision blurred with tears. Her daughter looked so beautiful, so happy. For a moment, all the struggle and pain and exhaustion of the past 7 years felt worth it, just to see this smile. "You look gorgeous, baby," Simone managed to say. Beth clasped her hands together. "Oh, you're absolutely radiant, Amara. That dress was made for you." But then Simone looked at the price tag again. $650. She had $200 in her wallet, money she'd saved by skipping lunches, by walking miles instead of taking the bus, by saying no to every tiny luxury. It wasn't even close to enough. Beth seemed to read her expression. "Would you like me to check if we have any similar styles at a lower price point?" she asked gently. Before Simone could answer, voices rose from the direction of the office. Angry voices. Then the office door flew open and Gabrielle stormed out, her face red with rage. She grabbed her purse from behind the counter and headed straight for the exit. "You can't do this," Gabrielle shouted back toward the office. "I've worked here for 3 years. And in those 3 years you've learned nothing about treating people with respect," came the response. The voice made Simone's blood run cold. She knew that voice. Even after 7 years, even with the anger in it now, she knew it. Julian Hayes stepped out of the office. He was scanning the store, clearly looking for Simone and Amara after whatever Gabrielle had told him. When his eyes found them, when he saw Simone standing there with a little girl in a blue dress, his entire world visibly stopped. Simone watched recognition hit him like a physical blow. His face went pale. His hand gripped the doorframe as if he needed support. His eyes moved from Simone to Amara, from Amara to Simone, and she could see him doing the math, counting the years, seeing the undeniable truth written in her daughter's face. Amara had his eyes. The same warm brown, the same shape. She had his smile, his dimples. Anyone who knew Julian and looked at Amara would see the connection immediately. "Simone," he breathed, and the sound of her name in his voice after all these years made her knees weak. Is she?" He couldn't finish the question. The store had gone completely silent. Every employee, every customer was watching this unfold. Amara, oblivious to the tension, twirled again. Do you like my dress, Mama? Simone couldn't speak, couldn't move. 7 years of pain and anger and loneliness crashed over her like a wave. 7 years of struggling alone. 7 years of wondering why he left, of hating him and missing him in equal measure. Julian took a step forward, then another. His eyes never left Amara's face. When he was close enough, Simone could see tears gathering in his eyes. How old is she? He whispered. 7, Simone said, her voice barely audible. She'll be 8 tomorrow. The math was obvious. The timeline was clear. Julian's hand rose to his mouth, his expression one of absolute devastation. Simone, He stopped, swallowed hard. I looked for you. I tried to find you. Not hard enough, Simone said bitterly. Beth, sensing the private nature of this conversation, gently took Amara's hand. Sweetheart, why don't we go look at some hair ribbons to match your dress? Your mama will be right here. Amara hesitated, looking between her mother and this strange man who was staring at her with tears in his eyes. It's okay, baby, Simone said, her voice shaking. Go with Miss Beth. I'll be right here. Once Amara was out of earshot, Julian spoke again, his voice rough with emotion. I never knew, he said. Simone, I swear to you, I never knew you were pregnant. If I had known, I would never have. He stopped, running a hand through his hair. Why didn't you tell me? I tried, Simone said, anger giving her strength. I called you every day for 2 months. I sent emails, messages, everything. You never responded. Not once. My phone was stolen, Julian said desperately. In Singapore the second week I was there. Someone took it from my hotel room along with my laptop. I lost everything. All my contacts, all my messages. By the time I got a new phone and tried to reach you, your number wasn't working. Simone stared at him, trying to process this information. It sounded like an excuse, a convenient explanation. But the pain in his eyes looked real. I came back, Julian continued. 3 months after I left. I went to your apartment, but you'd moved. The landlord wouldn't tell me where. I tried your friends, your job, everywhere I could think of. But you were gone. I had to move, Simone said, her voice breaking. I lost my job when I got pregnant. I couldn't afford that apartment anymore. I had to move back in with my aunt across the state. I didn't know, Julian whispered. Simone, I spent months looking for you. I thought you'd left me. I thought you'd decided you didn't want to be with me anymore. I thought the same thing about you, Simone said. Tears were streaming down her face now. You left and never came back. You promised you'd only be gone for 6 weeks, but you never came back. The business deal fell through. It got complicated. I had to stay longer than I planned. Julian's face was anguished. But I was always planning to come home to you. You were everything to me, Simone. Everything. The past tense of that word hurt more than anything else. The store remained frozen in this moment of revelation. Employees pretended to work but were clearly listening. Customers lingered by displays they weren't interested in, unwilling to miss the drama unfolding before them. Julian seemed to remember they had an audience. He looked around at the watching faces and made a decision. Everyone out, he said quietly but with absolute authority. Sir? One of the sales associates asked, confused. Close the store. Everyone leaves now. Except Beth. He looked at Simone. Please. Give me 5 minutes to talk to you properly. Without an audience. Simone should have refused. She should have grabbed Amara and run as far from Julian Hayes as possible. But something in his eyes held her in place. Something that looked like genuine pain, genuine regret. She nodded. Within 3 minutes, the store was empty except for Julian, Simone, Beth, and Amara. Beth had cleverly distracted Amara in the children's section, showing her various accessories and keeping her occupied. The child was still wearing the blue dress, spinning and admiring herself in the mirror. Julian locked the front door and turned the sign to closed. Then he faced Simone and all the years between them seemed to collapse. I'm so sorry, he said. For everything. For not being there. For not knowing. For not finding you when I came back. You built all this, Simone said, gesturing at the store. You became successful. You clearly moved on with your life. I built this because I had nothing else, Julian said. After I couldn't find you, I threw myself into work. It was the only thing that kept me from going crazy. Every day I wondered where you were, if you were okay, if you'd found someone else. I was raising our daughter alone, Simone said, her voice hard. Working 3 jobs, barely making rent. There was no one else. There was no time for anyone else. It was just me and Amara against the world. Julian's face crumpled. 3 jobs. 2 part-time, 1 full-time. I work at a diner in the mornings, a cleaning company in the afternoons, and stock shelves at a grocery store at night. Amara stays with my neighbor when I can't be there. The words poured out, 7 years of exhaustion behind them. I don't have time to sleep, let alone date. I've given her everything I can, but it's never enough. She wears secondhand clothes and eats simple food and doesn't get birthday parties or trips or any of the things other kids have. Stop, Julian said, his voice breaking. Please stop. What? Does the truth make you uncomfortable? Simone knew she was being cruel now, but she couldn't stop. 7 years of pain had to go somewhere. Yes, Julian said simply. It makes me sick. Knowing that you struggled while I was here, building a business, living comfortably, completely unaware that I had a daughter. He looked toward Amara, who was now wearing a matching hair ribbon that Beth had found, still spinning in her dress. She's beautiful, Julian whispered. She looks like you. She has your eyes, Simone said. And your smile. And your stubborn streak. A ghost of a smile touched Julian's lips, quickly fading. What's her name? Amara. It means grace. That's perfect. He turned back to Simone. I want to help. I want to be part of her life if you'll let me. I want to make up for all the years I missed. This was the moment. The moment where, according to so many stories, the proud single mother would refuse the help, would insist she didn't need anything from the man who'd left her. But Simone thought about the story's rules, about kindness and hope and love leading the way. She thought about Amara, who deserved more than constant struggle. Okay, Simone said quietly. Julian looked shocked. Okay. I don't have the luxury of pride, Simone said honestly. I'm exhausted, Julian. I'm so tired I can barely think straight most days. If you genuinely want to help, if you genuinely want to be part of Amara's life, then, yes. Okay. Relief flooded Julian's face. Thank you. I promise you won't regret this. I hope not. Simone wiped her eyes. But I need to know something first. What happened with that woman, Gabrielle? She was horrible to us. Julian's expression darkened. I fired her. I heard. Why? Beth came to my office and told me what happened. How Gabrielle treated you and Amara, the things she said. That kind of behavior has no place in my store or anywhere else. He looked at Simone steadily. I don't tolerate people treating others as less than human because of how much money they have or what they're wearing. It's disgusting. But you didn't know it was me when you fired her, Simone pointed out. No. I would have fired her for treating any customer that way. Julian stepped closer. Simone, I know I have a lot to prove to you. I know trust isn't just given, it's earned. But I'm asking for a chance. Let me show you I'm not the person who abandoned you. Let me show you I can be the father Amara deserves. Simone looked at her daughter, so happy in her blue dress, so innocent and full of joy despite the harsh start to their shopping trip. She thought about how Amara asked about her father sometimes, creating stories about where he might be, why he wasn't with them. She thought about the nights Amara cried because kids at school said mean things about her not having a dad. She doesn't know who you are, Simone said. I told her that her father had to go away but that he loved her. Julian's eyes filled with fresh tears. Thank you for that. I did it for her, not for you. Simone took a breath. But if you're serious about this, if you really want to be her father, we need to take it slow. She can't just suddenly have a dad appear in her life. It will confuse her. Whatever you think is best, Julian said immediately. I'll follow your lead. They stood there for a moment, two people who had once loved each other deeply, now connected by a child neither had planned but both clearly loved. The dress, Julian said suddenly. The blue dress Amara is wearing. I want to buy it for her. For her birthday. Julian, it's $600, Simone said. I can't accept that. Please, Julian said. It's her birthday. Let me give this to her. Let me start making things right. Following the rules of the story, Simone accepted. Okay. Thank you. Thank you for letting me. Julian called to Beth. Beth, please remove all the tags from that dress and wrap up whatever accessories match it. I'm purchasing everything for Amara. Beth smiled. Of course, Mr. Hayes. And Simone, Julian said, turning back to her. I want to set up a proper support system for you both. Child support, back payment for the years I missed, a college fund for Amara. Whatever you need. Julian. No arguments, he said gently. This isn't charity. This is me taking care of my daughter, which I should have been doing all along. Please let me do this. Simone felt a weight she'd been carrying for 7 years begin to lift, just slightly. Okay. That night, After Amara was asleep in their small one-bedroom apartment clutching her new blue dress like a treasure, Simone sat alone in the dim light of the kitchen. The apartment was tiny, the paint was peeling, and the heater barely worked, but it was theirs. She'd made it a home through sheer determination and love. On the kitchen table sat a business card Julian had given her before they left the store. His personal number was written on the back in his neat handwriting. "Call me tomorrow," he'd said. "We'll figure everything out together." Together. The word felt foreign. For 7 years there had been no together. Only Simone, alone, fighting to keep her daughter fed and safe and happy. She let her mind drift back to the beginning, to when Julian had been the center of her world. They'd met in college, both juniors in a literature class neither had particularly wanted to take. Simone was studying business management on a scholarship, juggling classes with 2 part-time jobs. Julian was also studying business, but his path was funded by student loans and the small inheritance from his grandmother. Their first conversation had been about a novel they both found pretentious and overrated. They'd ended up at a coffee shop, talking for 4 hours about books and dreams and life. After that, they were inseparable. Julian had been different then. Softer, more open. He talked about wanting to build something meaningful, to create a business that mattered. He hated the corporate world, the greed and callousness he saw in business classes. He wanted to be different, to be better. And Simone had believed in him. She'd fallen in love with his passion, his kindness, his vision for the future. He'd made her laugh, made her feel seen in a way no one else ever had. When he looked at her, she felt like she was the only person in the world who mattered. They dated through their senior year. They moved in together after graduation, a cramped studio apartment that felt like a palace because they were together. They talked about marriage, about children someday when they were more stable. Everything felt possible. Then Julian got the offer. A chance to work with an investor in Singapore who wanted to fund a boutique business. It was Julian's dream, the opportunity he'd been waiting for. 6 weeks, he'd said. 2 months at most. He'd go, set up the deal, and come back to start their life together properly. Simone had been scared but supportive. She'd driven him to the airport, kissed him goodbye, told him she loved him. He'd promised to call every day. The first week he did. They talked every night, despite the time difference. He told her about the meetings, the city, how much he missed her. The second week, the calls became less frequent. He was busy, he said. The deal was more complicated than expected. Then silence. Simone called and called. Her messages went unanswered. His email bounced back. It was as if he'd vanished from the earth. She told herself there had to be an explanation. Julian wouldn't just abandon her. He loved her. They had plans. But days turned into weeks and weeks turned into a month. And then Simone realized she was late. Very late. The pregnancy test was positive. She'd sat on the bathroom floor of their apartment, staring at the 2 pink lines and felt her world shatter. She was pregnant and alone with no way to contact the father. No family nearby to support her. Barely any savings. Terror didn't begin to describe it. She tried everything to find Julian. She'd called the investment firm he'd mentioned, but they said he was no longer associated with them. She'd reached out to his old college friends but no one knew where he was. It was as if he'd decided to erase himself from her life completely. Eventually reality forced her hand. She had to deal with her pregnancy alone. She lost her job when morning sickness made her miss too many shifts. The landlord evicted her when she couldn't pay rent. She'd packed everything she owned into 2 suitcases and taken a bus 300 miles to her aunt's house, the only family she had left. Her Aunt Carol was loving but poor, living in a mobile home in a rural area with few job opportunities. Simone found work where she could, piecing together income from odd jobs. When Amara was born, small and perfect and screaming with life, Simone had held her daughter and made a promise. "I will give you everything I can," she'd whispered. "I will never let you feel unwanted or unloved. I will be enough for both of us." She tried to keep that promise every single day since. But being enough for 2 people was impossible. She worked herself into exhaustion, sacrificing sleep and health and any personal life to provide for Amara. They'd moved back to the city 2 years ago when Simone found better job opportunities, but better was relative. They still struggled. They still went without. And through it all, Simone had hated Julian. Hated him for leaving, for not caring enough to come back, for letting her suffer alone. She'd created a version of him in her mind that was selfish and cruel, a man who'd abandoned his responsibilities without a second thought. But now, after seeing him today, after seeing the genuine shock and pain in his eyes, she didn't know what to believe anymore. Had he really lost his phone and tried to find her? Or was that just a convenient story? Did he truly not know about Amara? Or had he known and chosen to stay away? Could she trust him now? Or would he disappear again the moment things got difficult? These questions swirled in her mind as she sat in the dark kitchen, staring at his business card. Tomorrow was Amara's birthday. Tomorrow everything might change. For better or worse, the father her daughter had never known was about to enter their lives. Simone touched her phone, thinking about calling him right now, demanding answers to all the questions burning in her chest. But it was late and she was exhausted, and Amara would wake up early, excited about her birthday. Tomorrow. They would deal with everything tomorrow. She went to bed but barely slept, her mind replaying every moment from the boutique, every expression on Julian's face, every word he'd spoken. Somewhere around 3 in the morning she finally drifted off, her dreams a confused tangle of past and present. Morning arrived with Amara bouncing on her bed, giggling and singing. It's my birthday, I'm 8 years old today. Simone forced herself awake, pushing aside her exhaustion and worry to smile for her daughter. Happy birthday, baby girl. Amara threw herself into Simone's arms, squeezing tight. Thank you for my dress, Mama. It's the best present ever. You're welcome, sweetheart. Simone held her close, breathing in the scent of her daughter's hair, reminding herself why everything she did was worth it. They had a simple breakfast of pancakes which Simone had prepared the night before. Amara chattered happily about how she couldn't wait to wear her new dress to school and show all her friends. She didn't mention the incident at the store, the cruel words from Gabrielle. Children were resilient that way, able to let go of pain more easily than adults. After Amara left for school with the neighbor who watched her in the mornings, Simone sat with her phone, staring at Julian's number. She needed to call him. They needed to talk properly without the shock of yesterday clouding everything. Her finger hovered over the screen. Before she could lose her courage, she pressed call. He answered on the first ring. Simone. Hi. Her voice came out smaller than she intended. How are you? How's Amara? She's good. Happy. It's her birthday today. I know. There was a pause. I've been up all night thinking about everything. About the 7 years I missed. Her first word, her first step, her first day of school. Everything. Simone heard the pain in his voice and felt an unwelcome pang of sympathy. Julian, we need to talk. Really talk. Not in a store with people watching. Yes. Can I see you today? Both of you? Amara's at school until 3. We could meet somewhere after that. Come to my house, Julian said. It's private, comfortable. I want Amara to see where I live. And I want to talk to you without interruptions. Simone hesitated. Going to his house felt too intimate, too much too fast. But she also understood his reasoning. This conversation needed privacy. Okay, she agreed. Text me the address. I will. And Simone? Thank you. For giving me this chance. After they hung up, Simone sat in the silence of her apartment, trying to process everything. Her life had been one way for 7 years, a constant struggle but at least predictable. Now, in the span of 24 hours, everything had shifted. Julian was back. He wanted to be a father. He wanted to help. Could she let him? Could she risk trusting him again? The day passed in a blur. Simone went to her morning shift at the diner, serving coffee and eggs to the regulars who barely looked at her. She thought about calling in sick to her afternoon cleaning job but couldn't afford to lose the hours. Instead, she scrubbed floors and emptied trash cans, her mind miles away. At 2:45, she picked up Amara from school. Her daughter was bubbling with excitement, telling her about how her teacher had sung happy birthday to her and how she'd shared cookies with her class. Mama, can we do something special today? Amara asked. Since it's my birthday? Actually, baby, we're going to visit someone. Who? Simone took a deep breath. Do you remember the nice man from the store yesterday? The one who bought you your dress. Aha. We're going to visit him. He wants to give you another birthday present. Amara's eyes went wide. Really? Another present? Really? Simone helped her daughter into their beat-up car, which barely ran but got them where they needed to go. He's a very special person, Amara. He's going to be around a lot from now on. Why? Because he cares about us. About you especially. That seemed to satisfy Amara for now. Simone followed the GPS to Julian's address, and her stomach dropped when she saw the neighborhood. These were not ordinary houses. These were estates, with tall gates and long driveways and manicured lawns that probably cost more to maintain than Simone made in a month. Julian's house was beautiful but not ostentatious. A 2-story colonial in soft gray with white trim, surrounded by trees that provided privacy. The driveway was paved and perfect. Everything looked like it came from a magazine. Before Simone could second-guess herself, the front door opened and Julian appeared. He'd clearly been watching for them. He wore jeans and a green sweater, casual but still somehow elegant. When he saw Amara get out of the car, his face transformed with emotion. "Hi," he said, walking toward them but keeping a respectful distance. "Happy birthday, Amara." "Thank you," Amara said shyly, suddenly uncertain in the face of this tall, emotional stranger. "I'm Julian," he said gently. "I'm a friend of your mom's. We knew each other a long time ago." Amara looked at Simone, who nodded encouragingly. "Would you like to come inside?" Julian asked. "I have something for you." They followed him into the house. The interior was lovely, decorated in warm neutrals with comfortable furniture and art on the walls. It looked like a home, not just a showplace. Pictures sat on shelves, books filled cases. Through a window, Simone could see a backyard with a swing set that looked brand new. "I wasn't sure what 8-year-olds liked," Julian said nervously, "so I might have gone overboard." He led them to the living room, where presents were stacked on the coffee table. Not just one or two but at least 8 wrapped gifts in bright paper. Amara gasped. "Are those all for me?" "If you want them," Julian said. "You can open them now or save them. Whatever you prefer." "Can I open them now, Mama?" Amara looked at Simone with pleading eyes. "Of course, baby." What followed was pure joy. Amara tore into the presents with the enthusiasm only a child could manage. There were books, art supplies, a beautiful doll with dark skin and curly hair like Amara's, a science kit, a board game and more. Each gift had been chosen with thought, not just expensive things but items that matched what a smart, curious 8-year-old would actually enjoy. While Amara explored her new treasures, Julian pulled Simone into the kitchen, where they could still see Amara but could talk privately. "Thank you for coming," Julian said. "I know it wasn't easy." "Julian, we need to talk about what happened." "Really talk." Simone crossed her arms, kneading the barrier between them. "I need to understand. 7 years ago you left. You stopped calling, stopped writing. I had no way to reach you. I was pregnant and terrified and completely alone." "I know," Julian said, his voice heavy with regret. "Simone, I need you to believe me. My phone was stolen. Someone broke into my hotel room while I was at a meeting. They took my phone, my laptop, everything. I filed a police report, but nothing was ever recovered. Why didn't you email me from a different account? Why didn't you contact me some other way?" "I tried," Julian insisted. "I created a new email address and sent you messages but they bounced back. I realize now that you must have closed that account when you moved. I called your old job but they said you'd left months before. I called your old apartment but the number was disconnected. I flew back to the city as soon as the deal finalized but you were gone." Simone studied his face, looking for any sign of deception. "You expect me to believe that you just couldn't find me? For 7 years. I hired a private investigator," Julian said. 2 of them actually. But you'd moved out of state and your aunt had an unlisted number. You weren't on social media. You'd essentially disappeared. After a year of searching, they told me there was nowhere else to look. I was 300 miles away, living in a mobile home and working whatever jobs I could find," Simone said. "I came back to the city 2 years ago but I was so focused on survival that I never thought to try reaching out to you again. I assumed you'd moved on with your life and didn't care." "I never moved on," Julian said quietly. "There's been no one else, Simone. I threw myself into building this business because it was the only thing I could control. I made money, I bought this house, I had success. But none of it meant anything because you weren't there to share it with." Tears welled in Simone's eyes. "I hated you. For 7 years I hated you. I don't blame you." Julian's own eyes were damp. "If I were in your position, I would have hated me too. But now I don't know what to feel," Simone admitted. "If what you're saying is true, if this really was just a terrible series of misunderstandings, then we both lost 7 years for nothing." "Not for nothing," Julian said, looking through the doorway at Amara, who was now drawing with her new art supplies. "You raised an incredible little girl. You kept her safe and loved and happy all by yourself. That's not nothing, Simone. That's everything. I didn't have a choice." "You did," Julian corrected. "You could have given up. You could have been bitter and let it affect how you treated her. But you didn't. You gave her everything you had and it shows. She's confident and kind and smart. That's all you." The compliment broke something loose in Simone. She started crying, really crying, 7 years of exhaustion and fear and loneliness pouring out. Julian stepped forward instinctively then stopped. "Can I hug you?" Simone nodded, and his arms came around her, strong and familiar despite the years. She sobbed into his shoulder, letting out all the pain she'd been holding in for so long. "I'm so sorry," Julian murmured. "I'm so sorry for everything you went through. I'm sorry I wasn't there. I'm sorry you had to do it all alone." When she finally pulled away, wiping her eyes, she saw Amara watching them with worried eyes. "Mama, why are you crying?" "Happy tears, baby," Simone managed. "Sometimes people cry when they're happy." Amara seemed to accept this, going back to her coloring. Julian and Simone sat at the kitchen table, and he showed her his phone, scrolling through old emails that had bounced back, showing her copies of the private investigator reports, showing her everything he could to prove his story was true. And slowly Simone began to believe him. The next 2 weeks passed in a strange dreamlike blur. Julian was true to his word, showing up in their lives with consistent, genuine effort. He didn't push too hard or expect too much. He simply made himself available, present in a way that slowly began to heal the wounds of his absence. Want to know if Julian proves himself worthy of Simone's trust? Does Amara accept him as her father? Keep reading, and don't forget to subscribe for more stories about second chances and unexpected reunions. Drop a comment below if you believe people deserve second chances or if some mistakes are too big to forgive. The first thing Julian did was set up financial support, exactly as he'd promised. He opened a savings account in Amara's name with enough money to cover her education through college. He set up a monthly support payment that was more than generous, insisting it was just a start toward making up for the years he'd missed. Following the story's rule, Simone accepted it all with gratitude. She was tired of pride. Tired of struggling. If Julian wanted to help, if he was genuinely committed to being part of their lives, then she would let him. The money made an immediate difference. Simone was able to quit 2 of her 3 jobs, keeping only the diner position. Suddenly she had time. Time to sleep more than 4 hours a night. Time to help Amara with her homework. Time to simply be present in her daughter's life instead of constantly rushing to the next obligation. They moved out of their cramped apartment into a modest but comfortable 2-bedroom place in a safer neighborhood. Amara got her own room for the first time in her life, decorated in purple and yellow, her favorite colors. She had a real bed instead of an air mattress. She had a desk for homework. She had space to be a child. Julian helped with the move, carrying boxes and assembling furniture. He didn't complain or act like it was beneath him. He worked alongside Simone, laughing when they couldn't figure out the instructions for Amara's bookshelf, celebrating when they finally got it right. He visited them 3 times a week, always calling first, always bringing something small for Amara. Books, mostly, or art supplies. He was learning what she liked, paying attention to her interests. He took them to museums and parks, places Simone had never been able to afford to visit. But the most important thing Julian did was show up at Amara's school events. Her class had a science fair, and Julian was there, admiring her project about butterflies. She had a music performance where she sang in the school choir, and Julian was in the audience, beaming with pride. These small moments meant everything. Slowly, Amara began to open up to him. She started looking forward to his visits. She would run to the door when he arrived, showing him drawings she'd made or telling him about things that happened at school. She still called him Julian, not understanding the full truth of who he was, but the bond was forming naturally. One evening, about 3 weeks after their reunion, Julian arrived with takeout from a nice restaurant. They ate together at Simone's new dining table, Amara chattering happily about a field trip her class was taking. After dinner, while Amara watched a movie in her room, Julian and Simone sat together on the couch, a comfortable distance between them but closer than they'd been since his return. "I need to tell her the truth," Julian said quietly. "About who I am. She deserves to know I'm her father." Simone had been thinking about this too. "I know. But I'm scared. What if it confuses her? What if she gets angry that I didn't tell her sooner?" "She might," Julian acknowledged. "But she's smart. She'll understand eventually. And the longer we wait, the harder it will be." "You're right." Simone took a deep breath. "We'll tell her together." "This weekend?" "This weekend," Julian agreed. They sat in silence for a moment, the weight of this decision settling over them. "Simone," Julian said, his voice hesitant. "Can I ask you something?" "Sure. Is there any chance, do you think we could ever?" He stopped, struggling to find the words. "What I mean is, I know I hurt you. I know trust doesn't just come back overnight. But I never stopped loving you. Not once in 7 years." Simone's heart skipped. She'd been trying not to think about this, trying to focus only on Amara and what was best for her. But the truth was, being around Julian again stirred up all the old feelings. The way he smiled, the way he listened, the way he looked at her like she was still the most important person in his world. I don't know, she said honestly. I'm still sorting through everything. 7 years of believing you abandoned me doesn't just disappear. I understand, Julian said quickly. I'm not asking for anything right now. I just wanted you to know that I'm here, that I want to be here. Not just for Amara but for you too. Simone looked at him, really looked at him. He'd aged, but in a good way. There were lines around his eyes now, signs of stress and hard work. But he was still Julian, still the man she'd fallen in love with in that coffee shop all those years ago. Let's take it slow, she said. Let's focus on being good parents to Amara first. The rest we can figure out as we go. Slow is good, Julian agreed. I'm not going anywhere, Simone. Not this time. Saturday came, bright and clear. Julian arrived in the morning, and the three of them went to the park where Amara loved to play. They pushed her on the swings, helped her across the monkey bars, had a picnic lunch on the grass. Then, as Amara sat between them on a park bench, eating an ice cream cone Julian had bought from a vendor, Simone and Julian exchanged a look. It was time. Amara, sweetheart, Simone began, her heart pounding. We need to talk to you about something important. Amara looked up, her face serious. Am I in trouble? No, baby, not at all. Simone took her daughter's hand. Do you remember how you've asked me about your daddy before? About where he is and why he's not with us? Amara nodded slowly, her ice cream forgotten. Well, Simone continued, her voice shaking slightly, you know how Julian has been spending time with us? Coming to visit and taking us to fun places? Aha. Julian is your daddy, sweetheart. For a moment, Amara just stared. Her young mind was processing this information, trying to make sense of it. Then she looked at Julian with wide, uncertain eyes. You're my daddy? Yes, Julian said, his voice thick with emotion. I'm your father, Amara. I know this is confusing and I'm sorry I wasn't here before. But I'm here now and I'm not going anywhere. I love you very much. Amara's bottom lip trembled. But where were you? All my friends have daddies. Why didn't you want me? The question broke both Simone's and Julian's hearts. I did want you, Julian said desperately. I always wanted you. I just didn't know you existed. It's complicated and when you're older we'll explain everything. But I promise you, Amara, if I had known about you, I would have been here from the very beginning. Tears rolled down Amara's cheeks. Do you really love me? More than anything in the world, Julian said. You're my daughter. You're the best thing that ever happened to me. Amara launched herself into his arms, crying into his shoulder. Julian held her tight, his own tears falling freely. Simone wrapped her arms around both of them and they stayed like that for a long time, a family finally beginning to heal. The weeks following the revelation were not without challenges. Amara had many questions and some days she was angry, asking why Julian had left her mama alone, why he hadn't come back sooner. But children are remarkably forgiving and Amara wanted a father. She wanted to believe in him. Julian proved himself day by day. He changed his work schedule to be more available, bringing Amara to school in the mornings and picking her up in the afternoons. He learned her routine, her favorite foods, the way she liked her hair braided. He read parenting books and asked Simone for guidance on everything. He also made sure to honor Simone's role as Amara's primary parent. He never undermined her decisions or tried to be the fun parent who said yes to everything. He backed up Simone's rules and discipline, presenting a united front. One evening, about 2 months into this new arrangement, Julian invited them to dinner at his house. He'd been cooking, trying to learn Amara's favorite meals. Tonight it was spaghetti and meatballs made from scratch. Amara helped him in the kitchen, standing on a stool to stir the sauce while Julian chopped vegetables. Simone watched from the doorway, her heart full as she observed their easy interaction. Her daughter was laughing, truly happy in a way she hadn't been before. After dinner they played board games in the living room. Julian was terrible at the memory-matching game Amara had picked, making exaggerated expressions of disappointment when he couldn't find matches. Amara giggled hysterically at his antics. When it was time to leave, Amara hugged Julian tight. Can we stay here tonight? She asked. You have that big guest room with the pretty bed. Simone started to say no, but Julian jumped in first. That's up to your mama, he said gently. But the guest room is always ready for you both, whenever you want to stay. Simone met his eyes over Amara's head. This was a big step. Staying at Julian's house felt intimate, like crossing a line they hadn't approached yet. But Amara looked so hopeful, and honestly, Simone was tired from work, and the thought of Julian's comfortable guest room with its soft mattress was tempting. Okay, Simone agreed. We can stay tonight. Amara cheered, running upstairs to explore the guest room again. Julian turned to Simone with a grateful smile. Thank you, he said. I know this isn't easy for you. It's getting easier, Simone admitted. You're doing everything right, Julian. You're being the father she needs. I'm trying. He stepped closer, his expression turning serious. And I want to be what you need too, Simone. I want us to be a real family. We are a real family, Simone said. Maybe not in the traditional way, but we're figuring it out. I want more, Julian said softly. I want what we had before. I want to wake up next to you. I want to come home to you both at the end of the day. I want forever, Simone. Her breath caught. She'd felt the old feelings returning, stronger each day. The way Julian looked at her made her heart race. The accidental touches, the shared smiles over Amara's head, the comfortable silences that said more than words could. I'm scared, she whispered. What if something goes wrong again? What if you leave? I won't, Julian said firmly. He took her hands in his. I can't promise life will be perfect. But I can promise I will never leave you again. I will fight for us, for this family, every single day. Julian? You don't have to answer now, he said. Just think about it. Think about us, about what we could be. Upstairs, they heard Amara calling for them to come see her new drawings. The moment broke, but the conversation hung in the air between them, unfinished but full of possibility. That night, Simone lay in Julian's guest room, unable to sleep. Down the hall, Amara was in another room, sleeping peacefully. And further down, Julian was in his own room, probably also awake, probably also thinking about the future. Could she trust him again? Could she open her heart fully after guarding it for so long? She thought about the past months. How Julian had never once failed to show up when he said he would. How he'd integrated himself into their lives with patience and care. How he looked at Amara with such pure love. How he looked at Simone like she was still his entire world. Maybe trust wasn't about guarantees. Maybe it was about choosing to believe, choosing to hope, despite the risk. The next morning, Simone woke to the smell of coffee and pancakes. She found Julian and Amara in the kitchen, working together to make breakfast. Amara was wearing one of Julian's t-shirts like a dress, flour on her nose, giggling as she poured batter onto the griddle with Julian's careful supervision. Good morning, Julian said, his face lighting up when he saw Simone. Morning, Mama, Amara chirped. We're making pancakes shaped like stars. Simone's heart swelled. This, right here, was what she'd dreamed of when she first learned she was pregnant. A family. A partner. Someone to share the load, the joy, the everyday moments that made life meaningful. Can I help? Simone asked. You can sit and relax, Julian said. Breakfast will be ready in 5 minutes. They ate together at Julian's kitchen table, sun streaming through the windows. Amara chattered about wanting to play in the backyard later. Julian promised to push her on the new swing set he'd installed. Simone sipped her coffee and watched them, feeling something she hadn't felt in a very long time. After breakfast, while Amara played outside, Simone and Julian cleaned up together. They moved in sync, handing each other dishes, their movements natural and easy. Julian, Simone said as he dried the last plate. I've been thinking about what you said last night. He turned to her, hope and fear warring in his expression. Yeah. I'm not ready to move in or get married or make any huge declarations, she said. But I'm ready to try. Really try. To see if we can be what we used to be, what we could have been. The smile that spread across Julian's face was like sunshine. Really? Really, Simone confirmed. You've earned a second chance, Julian. Don't waste it. I won't, he promised. He pulled her into his arms, holding her close. I love you, Simone. I never stopped. I love you too, she whispered and realized it was true. Despite everything, despite the pain and the years and the struggle, she still loved him. They stood there in the kitchen, holding each other, while through the window they could see their daughter playing happily in the sunshine. It wasn't perfect. They still had healing to do, trust to rebuild fully, a future to figure out. But they had time. They had each other. And that was enough. The next few months transformed their lives in ways Simone had never imagined possible. Julian's presence became a constant, reliable thread woven through their daily existence. He wasn't just visiting anymore. He was truly part of their family. Amara blossomed under the attention of both parents. Her confidence grew. She started raising her hand more in class, making new friends, trying new activities. Julian signed her up for ballet lessons she'd always wanted but Simone couldn't afford. He sat through every class, watching through the window with the other parents, his face glowing with pride. He also became her homework helper, patiently explaining math problems and listening to her practice reading. He attended every parent-teacher conference alongside Simone, asking thoughtful questions about Amara's progress and how they could support her better. One Saturday, Julian took Amara to a father-daughter event at her school. Simone stayed home, giving them space to bond. When they returned, Amara couldn't stop talking about all the games they'd played, how Julian had won the three-legged race, how he'd braided her hair when it came loose. All the other girls said my daddy was cool, Amara told Simone proudly. Kiara's dad said Julian should coach the soccer team. Simone smiled, watching Julian try to look modest. Is that so? I told them I'd think about it, Julian said. If Amara joins the team, of course. Can I, Mama? Can I play soccer? Amara bounced excitedly. If you want to, baby. That became a pattern. Julian found ways to be involved in Amara's life that were meaningful but not overwhelming. He coached her soccer team. He volunteered at her school's reading program. He showed up for every game, every recital, every event, big or small. But what touched Simone most was watching the small, everyday moments between father and daughter. Julian brushing Amara's hair with careful gentleness. Amara falling asleep on the couch with her head on Julian's shoulder. The two of them having serious conversations about everything from why the sky is blue to whether superheroes could be real. Julian asked Amara about her feelings, validated her emotions, taught her that her thoughts and opinions mattered. He apologized when he made mistakes, modeling healthy behavior. He set boundaries with love, explaining his reasoning in ways she could understand. One evening, Simone overheard them talking in Amara's room during bedtime. Daddy, Amara said, the word still new enough to make Julian's eyes water every time, I'm glad you came back. Me too, baby girl. Me too. Are you going to stay forever? Forever and ever, Julian promised. Nothing could make me leave you. Do you promise? I promise with my whole heart. Listening from the hallway, Simone felt her remaining walls crumble. Julian had proven himself over and over. He'd shown up, consistently and completely. He'd earned not just Amara's trust but hers too. That night, after Amara was asleep, Julian stayed for a while, sitting with Simone on her couch. She called me Daddy, Julian said, his voice full of wonder. She's been doing it naturally now, not thinking about it. I noticed, Simone said. You're her hero. I just want to be her dad. A good one. You are, Simone assured him. You're better than I ever imagined you could be. Julian turned to her. Can I take you on a date? A real date, just the two of us. Simone felt a flutter in her stomach. Like a date? Yes. Dinner, maybe dancing. I want to court you properly, Simone. I want to show you I'm serious about us. Okay, Simone said, smiling. Yes. I'd like that. The date happened the following weekend. Julian arranged for Beth from the boutique to babysit Amara. Beth had become a friend over the months, someone who genuinely cared about their family. Julian picked Simone up in his car and she felt like a teenager again, nervous and excited. She'd bought a new dress for the occasion, a deep red one that made her feel beautiful. Julian's reaction when he saw her confirmed it. You look stunning, he breathed. They went to a nice restaurant, nothing too fancy but elegant and intimate. They talked for hours, really talked about everything. Their past, their present, their hopes for the future. They laughed about old memories and created new ones. After dinner, Julian took her to a small jazz club where they slow danced to music that seemed made for them. Being in his arms felt right, like coming home after a long journey. I want to marry you, Julian said as they swayed to the music. Not tomorrow, not next month. But someday when you're ready. I want you to be my wife. I want us to be a complete family. Simone's eyes filled with tears. Ask me again in 6 months. 6 months? If we're still this happy, if nothing has changed, ask me then. And I promise to say yes. Julian smiled, kissing her forehead. 6 months. I'll count every day. They drove home in comfortable silence, hands linked. When they arrived at Simone's apartment, Julian walked her to the door and they kissed, really kissed for the first time since their reunion. It was sweet and promising and full of possibility. Thank you for tonight, Simone whispered. Thank you for giving me another chance, Julian replied. Inside, Beth reported that Amara had been perfect, going to bed on time without fuss. After she left, Simone checked on her daughter, finding her sleeping peacefully, one arm wrapped around the doll Julian had given her for her birthday. Simone stood in the doorway watching her sleep, thinking about how much had changed. 6 months ago they'd been struggling, barely surviving. Now they had security, support, and love. Julian had kept every promise. He'd proven himself worthy of trust. Maybe, just maybe, they really could have their happy ending. 5 months passed in a blur of happiness. Julian and Simone fell into a rhythm that felt natural and right. They spent most evenings together, either at her apartment or his house, cooking meals and helping Amara with homework and talking about their days. Julian introduced them to his parents, who flew in from Florida where they'd retired. They were warm, loving people who cried when they met Amara, overwhelmed by the granddaughter they'd never known existed. They welcomed Simone with open arms, treating her like she already belonged to the family. Simone and Julian took Amara on a vacation to the beach, their first real family trip. They built sandcastles and searched for shells and watched the sunset over the ocean. Amara learned to swim, with Julian patiently teaching her to float and kick. Simone took pictures of them together, her phone filling with images of father and daughter, both laughing, both covered in sand, both completely happy. At night, after Amara was asleep in the hotel room, Julian and Simone would sit on the balcony, talking quietly, holding hands, planning their future. "I want to expand the business," Julian told her. "Open a second location. But I also want to start a charitable foundation. Something to help single parents, especially mothers who are struggling like you were." "That's a beautiful idea," Simone said. "I was thinking maybe you could help run it," Julian suggested. "You understand what these families need better than anyone. Your insight would be invaluable." The idea excited Simone. She'd been thinking about what to do with her newfound time and stability. Working at the diner was fine, but it wasn't fulfilling. Helping others in situations like hers, making a real difference, that would mean something. "I'd love to," she said. They kissed under the stars, the sound of waves in the background, and Simone felt complete in a way she'd never experienced before. Back home they started working on the foundation together. Julian provided the funding and business expertise. Simone provided the vision and understanding of what struggling families actually needed. They rented a small office space and hired a few staff members. The foundation would offer financial assistance, childcare support, job training, and counseling. They partnered with local businesses to provide employment opportunities. They worked with schools to ensure children had supplies and meals. They created a network of resources that could help families climb out of poverty with dignity. The day they officially launched, cutting a ribbon outside their office with Amara by their side, news cameras captured the moment. When asked why he'd started the foundation, Julian looked at Simone and said simply, "Because someone I love went through hell alone, and I never want another family to face that." The foundation became Simone's passion. She met with families, heard their stories, connected them with resources. Every person she helped, she saw herself. Every child she provided for, she saw Amara. The work was healing, turning her pain into purpose. 6 months came, the deadline Simone had given Julian. They'd both remembered, both counted down, both prepared. Julian planned something special. He told Simone to dress up, that they were going somewhere important. He arranged for his parents to stay with Amara for the evening, though his mother kept giving him knowing smiles. When he picked up Simone, she was wearing a blue dress, the color of the sky, the color of the first dress he'd bought for Amara. She'd chosen it deliberately. "You look perfect," Julian said, his voice thick with emotion. He drove them to the park where they'd told Amara the truth about who he was. The same park where they'd sat as a broken family trying to heal. Now they walked hand in hand to a section decorated with string lights and flowers, a small setup that was intimate and beautiful. "What is this?" Simone asked, though her heart already knew. 6 months ago, you told me to ask you again," Julian said. "If we were still happy, if nothing had changed." "Well, things have changed. We're even happier now. We're stronger. We're a family." He got down on one knee, pulling a small box from his pocket. Inside was a ring, not overly large or showy, but elegant and perfect. A simple diamond on a white gold band. "Simone Parker, you are the love of my life. You're the mother of my child, the strongest person I know, and the best thing that ever happened to me. I lost you once and I spent 7 years lost without you. I don't want to spend another day without making this official. Will you marry me?" Tears streamed down Simone's face. "Yes," she said, her voice breaking. "Yes, Julian, I'll marry you." He slipped the ring on her finger and stood, pulling her into his arms and kissing her deeply. When they finally pulled apart, they heard clapping and turned to find Julian's parents emerging from hiding spots with Amara between them. "You knew?" Simone asked, laughing through her tears. "Daddy told me he was going to ask you to marry him," Amara said, running over. "I picked out the flowers. Julian scooped his daughter up. So what do you think, baby girl? Should we all be a family officially? Yes, Amara said firmly. I want us to live together and be a real family forever. Then that's what we'll be, Julian promised. They celebrated right there in the park with sparkling cider and cupcakes Julian's mother had packed. They took pictures and made plans and talked about the future. Amara wanted to be the flower girl. Julian's mother offered to help plan the wedding. His father gave Simone a hug and whispered, "Welcome to the family officially." That night, after bringing Amara home and tucking her into bed, Simone and Julian sat together on her couch, her hand in his, the engagement ring catching the light. "I can't believe this is really happening," Simone said. "Believe it," Julian said. "This is just the beginning, Simone. We're going to have an amazing life together." "What about a house?" Simone asked. "Your place or mine?" "Neither," Julian said with a smile. "I want us to pick out something new. Something that's ours from the start, where we can make new memories together. All three of us. I like that idea." They spent the rest of the evening making plans, dreaming about their future. A house with a big backyard for Amara. Maybe more children someday. Growing the foundation. Taking family vacations. Growing old together. Everything Simone had thought was impossible was now within reach. She'd been so broken, so lost, so convinced she'd have to struggle alone forever. But kindness, hope, and love had led her here. Julian's persistence, his genuine change, his commitment to making things right had given them a second chance. And this time they weren't going to waste it. The wedding took place 3 months later in a small ceremony at the same park where Julian had proposed. They wanted something intimate, just close friends and family focused on the meaning rather than the spectacle. Amara was indeed the flower girl, wearing a gorgeous lavender dress and carrying a basket of rose petals. She took her role very seriously, walking down the makeshift aisle with careful steps, sprinkling petals with perfect precision. Simone wore a simple white dress that flowed to her ankles, elegant and understated. She carried a bouquet of blue and white flowers. Julian wore a dark blue suit with a white shirt, looking handsome and emotional as he waited at the altar. Beth was Simone's maid of honor, having become one of her closest friends over the past year. Julian's college roommate, Anthony, stood as his best man. Julian's parents sat in the front row with Simone's Aunt Carol, who had traveled to be there, crying happy tears. The ceremony was short but meaningful. They'd written their own vows, promising love, support, and partnership. Julian promised to be the father Amara deserved and the husband Simone could rely on. Simone promised to trust him, to build a life with him, to move forward without looking back at the pain of the past. When the officiant pronounced them husband and wife, Julian kissed Simone with such tenderness that several people in the audience wiped their eyes. Amara cheered louder than anyone, running to hug both her parents. "We're a real family now," she said happily. "We were always a real family," Julian told her. "Now we just have the paperwork to prove it." The reception was held at a nearby restaurant they'd rented out. There was food, dancing, laughter, and joy. Simone danced with Julian, with his father, with Amara. Julian danced with his mother, with Aunt Carol, and then a special dance with Amara, lifting her up so her feet stood on his, moving around the floor while she giggled. During the toasts, Anthony shared stories about Julian in college, how he talked about Simone constantly even back then, how everyone knew she was the one. Beth talked about meeting Simone that first day in the boutique, seeing her strength and dignity despite Gabrielle's cruelty, knowing immediately that she was special. Aunt Carol spoke about watching Simone struggle alone for so many years, being so proud of her niece for never giving up, for raising Amara with love despite having so little. She welcomed Julian to the family with tears in her eyes, thanking him for giving Simone the happy ending she deserved. When Julian gave his speech, he talked about second chances, about how one day in his store had changed everything. He looked at Simone with such love that it radiated across the room. "I thought I'd lost her forever," Julian said. "I thought I'd lost my chance at happiness. But sometimes if you're very lucky, life gives you another opportunity to get it right. Simone could have turned me away. She had every right to hate me, to refuse my help, to shut me out of her life. But she didn't. She chose kindness. She chose hope. She chose love. And I will spend every day of the rest of my life being worthy of that choice." Simone stood and kissed him, and the room erupted in applause. Later, as the party wound down, Simone found a quiet moment to stand outside, looking at the stars. Julian joined her, wrapping his arms around her from behind. "What are you thinking about?" he asked. "How different everything is from a year ago," Simone said. A year ago, I was terrified about Amara's birthday, about having enough money to buy her something special. I was exhausted and alone and barely holding it together. And now? Now I have everything, Simone said simply. A partner, security, purpose. I'm not just surviving anymore. I'm actually living. We're living, Julian corrected. All three of us together. They stood in comfortable silence for a moment, then Simone turned in his arms. Thank you, she said. For not giving up on finding me. For proving yourself. For loving Amara so completely. For giving us this life. Thank you for giving me a chance to be the man I should have been all along, Julian replied. They went back inside to find Amara had fallen asleep on a chair, exhausted from all the excitement. Julian carefully picked her up, and they said goodbye to their guests, thanking everyone for coming. They drove to their new house, the one they'd bought together 2 months earlier. It was a beautiful 3-bedroom home in a good neighborhood with excellent schools. They'd moved in just last week, boxes still unpacked in several rooms, but it already felt like home. Julian carried Amara upstairs to her new bedroom, decorated in purple and yellow with glow-in-the-dark stars on the ceiling. He laid her gently in bed, removing her shoes but leaving her in her flower girl dress. She'd want to see it when she woke up. Simone tucked the covers around their daughter and kissed her forehead. Sweet dreams, baby girl. Love you, Mama, Amara murmured, half asleep. Love you, Daddy. We love you too, they said together. In their own bedroom, Julian and Simone changed out of their wedding clothes and sat on their bed, hands linked, looking at each other with wonder. Mrs. Hayes, Julian said, testing out her new name. That's going to take some getting used to, Simone said with a smile. We have time, Julian said. We have the rest of our lives. They lay down together, wrapped in each other's arms, and talked about their plans for the foundation, about the vacation they wanted to take as a family, about maybe giving Amara a little brother or sister someday. I have one more surprise, Julian said eventually. I didn't want to mention it before the wedding because I wanted today to be about us becoming a family. But the foundation has been so successful that we've been invited to speak at a conference next month about supporting single-parent families. That's wonderful, Simone said. There's more. We've received a grant, a big one, to expand our services. We can help twice as many families now. Maybe more. Simone felt tears well up again. Really? Really? Your story, our story, it's helping people, Simone. All the pain you went through, it wasn't for nothing. We're turning it into something beautiful. That felt right. The struggle, the years of hardship, the loneliness and fear, it had all led to this moment. It had led to Julian finding them again, to them helping others, to building something meaningful from their pain. I'm proud of us, Simone said. Of what we've built, who we've become. Me too, Julian agreed. And I'm excited for everything that's coming. We're just getting started. They fell asleep in each other's arms in their new home with their daughter safe down the hall. Outside, the stars shone bright over their quiet neighborhood. Inside, a family slept, complete and whole and happy. The next morning, Simone woke to the smell of coffee and pancakes. She found Julian and Amara in the kitchen, still in their pajamas, making breakfast together as they had so many times before. Good morning, Mrs. Hayes, Julian said with a grin. Good morning, husband, Simone replied. Look, Mama, Amara said, pointing to a banner Julian must have hung while she was still sleeping. It read, Welcome home, Hayes family. Do you like it? Julian asked. I thought we should mark this moment. The first full day in our house as a married family. I love it, Simone said, meaning it completely. They ate breakfast together, making plans for the day. They would unpack boxes, organize rooms, maybe paint Amara's wall the shade of purple she wanted. Simple, ordinary tasks that felt extraordinary because they were doing them together. Later that day, while Amara played in the backyard on her new swing set, Simone and Julian stood at the kitchen window watching her. Are you happy? Julian asked. Incredibly, Simone said. Are you? More than I ever imagined possible, Julian replied. They'd been through so much to get here. 7 years of separation, pain and struggle. Misunderstandings that could have destroyed any hope of reunion. But they'd chosen to try again, to believe in second chances, to let kindness and hope and love lead them forward. And now here they were, a family united. Not perfect because no family is perfect. But whole. Complete. Happy. Simone looked at her ring, catching the light, and thought about the girl she'd been a year ago, walking into that boutique with everything against her. She'd been humiliated and judged and made to feel worthless. But she'd stood her ground. She'd accepted help when it was offered instead of letting pride push it away. She'd chosen to believe that people could change, could grow, could become better. Those choices had led her here, to this moment, to this life. "Thank you," she whispered to Julian. "For what?" "For coming back. For being everything I needed you to be. For proving that happy endings are possible." Julian pulled her close. "Thank you for letting me. Thank you for giving me a chance to be the man I should have been all along." They stood together, watching their daughter play, knowing that whatever challenges came next, they would face them together. They were a family now, bound by love and commitment and genuine care for each other. Kindness had led them here. Hope had sustained them through the hard times. Love had brought them together and would keep them together for all the days to come. And as Amara's laughter rang out from the backyard, bright and joyful and free, Simone knew with absolute certainty that they were exactly where they were meant to be. Together. Finally and forever.